But thank you, Joanne. Before we do that, I just want to make sure that we go over some brief housekeeping guidelines so that those who don't feel yet as comfortable in Zoom can get a little bit familiar with the space. I want to remind you that we will be taking attendance and giving you credit for attending this event. Some of you may have been offered extra credit for coming to today's session, and so we want to make sure that we capture that information. If possible, please make sure to rename yourself with your name that is used here at Southwestern College, your first and last name, or you can go ahead and enter that into the chat. On the far left, you have a microphone. By default, we want you to know that you will be muted for most of today's session. There could be some background noise that may cause some distractions, and so we're going to try our best to keep you muted so that everyone can have the optimal experience for today's recording. If for whatever reason you're having a hard time finding us, there is a little up arrow, a little caret right by your microphone that has a switch to phone audio, and you can call in to hear this conversation as well. Next, you'll see your camera. This is where you can turn on or off your video. Of course, we understand if you aren't in a space where you can share video, but I know our speakers would love to see your face and see the students that they're talking to. So if you can, and you're in a situation where you are able to turn on your camera, please do. If you need closed captioning for any particular reason, please know that that option is available to you in the toolbar. And we will be utilizing the chat feature today for you to pose your questions. If you have questions, Victor and myself in student employment will be, my name's Genesis, by the way, I should introduce myself. I'm Genesis. We will be taking your questions and jotting those down and making sure to ask those to the panelists when we get to the Q&A portion. Okay, and with that, we are recording today's session. We are so thrilled to have our panelists with us today. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to Joanne Karuba, who is our moderator for today. Victor, can you hit the next slide, please?
Let me unmute myself there for a second. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming again and thank our panelists who have been so generous with their time today. We have speaking with us today, Jackie Fong, who is a senior experience designer from Zynga, Francisco Morales, who is the gallery director at the front Arte y Cultura, and Glen, Llorin, tell me if I pronounce that correctly. Cool. Graphic artist at Warner Brothers. And last but definitely not least, some of you folks may have had the pleasure of meeting our artist in my Casa's classes, Kat Johnson, who is a professional photographer. Victor, can you go forward for me, please? Thank you. So with that, I think we can stop the share. We're going to go into a panel discussion. We have some prepared questions that we're going to ask our panelists. And then, of course, as Genesis said, you are welcome to type questions in the chat that will allow for your questions to be answered by our panelists as well. So I'm going to start with a couple general questions, and then we have some specific questions for our panelists as well. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to provide a brief introduction about who you are, your job title, and what you do. And I'm just going to go in order that you are on my screen. So I'm going to start with Glen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Glen Llorin. Yes, I'm a graphic artist that I work at Warner Brothers, the movie studio. I work specifically for all the live action properties in the consumer products division. So everything that bears art or photos or whatnot that is directly licensed from Warner Brothers, like all the Harry Potter apparel that you see at Hot Topic, all the I always joke, I say, if you see a licensed crock pot that has friends on it, I work on that stuff. I create logos and designs and custom layouts for everything from apparel to minor products that are licensed through the Warner Brothers.
Awesome. Thank you. Jackie.
Hi, everyone. Like Joanne mentioned, I'm a senior experience designer at Zynga. That means user experience and user interface design. Coincidentally, I work on the Harry Potter game. Puzzles and Spells, it's a match 3 mobile game. And I get to work with a lot of amazing folks, from writers and developers, QA, other concept artists. It's a massive team effort to keep this game going, and magic's not stopping. So happy to answer any questions about that.
All right, Kat.
Hey, I'm Kat. My full name is Joanna Katarzyna Voronovich Johnson. So my maiden name is Voronovich. I'm Polish, and I'm a photographer. I've been doing this since, I don't know, 8th grade, but making money at it for about 20 years, and I love it. It's pretty cool. Get to photograph people and events and connect with people. So yeah, it's a good gig. Beats working for a living.
Nice. Francisco.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francisco. I am Arts and Culture Director at Casa Familiar. More specifically, I work at the gallery called the Front Arte Cultura here in San Isidro. I curate exhibitions, I curate concerts, performances, and do all the programming and manage the gallery in its everyday operations. But I am also an artist. I work with sound. I am a music composer. I make music. And I also make sound art installations, and been flirting with photography and video. And I include that in my art as well. As an artist, I've been showing my art well, in Mexico City, USA. I've had exhibitions or pieces being shown in Colombia, in Italy, in several countries in different parts of the world. But my work here at the gallery is mostly working with the binational and transnational communities. People from Tijuana, Ensenada, all the way to Los Angeles, of course, San Diego, Tucson. So it's a pretty exciting job. Yes, I get to work with artists, and right now I'm installing a few video installations. So I really like working in this part of the world. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Okay, our next general question for everyone is going to be, what made you interested in this field, and how did you get into this field or profession? So I'm going to go in the same order. Glenn, I'm going to start with you again.
Okay. Well, I was always interested in the art field ever since I was a little kid. I was always interested in drawing my favorite comic book characters, and it was a passion of mine. I originally wanted to try my hand at becoming a comic book artist, but at the time, which was quite a long time ago, there wasn't anything available for me to study at the time, to go into that field. And it was a hard sell to try to convince my parents to tell them I wanted to be a comic book artist. They didn't think it was going to be very what do you call it, profitable or help sustain a living. And I also found out like how I've had friends who became comic book artists, and I found out how much work they put into. And at the time, I was becoming undecided of which other things that I wanted to do, but I still wanted to retain the art background. And so when it came around to college time, I wanted to go into illustration. And right before I graduated from high school, I was going to go to San Diego State, and then they dropped the illustration program. So I was scrambling to see what was next for me, what else I could do that still, I could still create art and make a living. And graphic design was the next thing that was available to me, and became interesting to me because I found out like graphic design was basically everything that you see on a product, everything that you see in the outside world, on magazines, on billboards, on your products and everything. And to be able to say I created something that everyone gets to see was very, very interesting to me. So I went into the graphic design field, and specifically, I ended up becoming an apparel graphic designer. So I was designing a lot of graphics for T-shirts and jackets and sweatshirts that were sold everywhere, like at Anchor Blue, which is no longer around, but well, specifically like Hot Topic and whatnot. And I've had that career for such a long time. I started professionally in '96, and geez, I can't add right now, because as you can see, I'm more art-based instead of math-based, but it's a long time. And I'm lucky to be able to sustain myself in this field. I've been in apparel for a long time, but I switched into entertainment for 5 years, working at the Upper Deck Company, which is a trading card company. And I actually designed a lot of products for them for actual like card games and board games for other properties like World of Warcraft. And then there was a gigantic layoff at Upper Deck. And so I moved on again after a hiatus. I was back in apparel, and then for a few more years. And now I'm at Warner Brothers, not doing just apparel, but designing for everything that has a Warner Brothers license on it. I think going back to it as a kid, I just loved art, and it was just part of me. And then up until now, you know, I've always wanted to create it, using my hands to create artwork. And even with the prospect of hopefully like moving up to becoming an art director, hopefully soon, I still want to be able to use my hands and actually get down and dirty and create the artwork instead of just directing by itself. I don't think I would ever want to lose the passion of actually creating art by myself, but like myself, instead of just like being a higher up and going, okay, you do that. But that's, you know, that's the corporate world too. Like you keep moving on up and having more responsibilities. You know, sometimes you'll do that, but hopefully I'll get the chance to keep grinding away and making cool stuff for people to see.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Jackie.
I'm kind of similar to Glen in that I've kind of bounced around with different ideas and absolutely never wanted to lose touch with being able to do hands-on creating and ideating. I actually started out thinking I would be like my dad, and he's a software engineer. And because I thought in my very stubborn childhood ways that if I do art for a living, I'm not going to love it anymore. It's going to be work. It's going to be just day in, day out. Meh. Half right. But both my parents were very, I'll say non-stereotypical Asian parents, where they were saying, no, listen, you're an art kid. You should do art things. You are getting frustrated with basic coding. You almost threw out your laptop out the window the other day because an if-then loop wasn't working. So this is not for you. And I appreciated that honesty, blunt as it was. But, you know, pulling up the receipts, it was very true. Like I loved making Sailor Moon books when I was a kid. I had a digital art coloring Sesame Street program that I loved to play with. All the stars were aligned, all the signs were there. It just took me a while to admit, oh yeah, I should art. So I was a little bit late in high school getting into that. Thankfully, My school had a digital arts program, and we also had life drawing sessions. So it was a lot of opportunity to sort of sample different disciplines. And then I went to secondary school for graphic design, primarily focused on traditional print-based design. And of course, again, for sake of like a wide range, we did some interactive design courses. Back then we didn't have so many different prototyping tools. I wish we had, but it was awesome just like being able to animate in Flash, create our websites in Flash. Not so much a thing now, so I'm kind of dating myself. And my first job out of school, well, I should say I did a couple internships at the Art Gallery of Ontario, actually. So I got to experience the print-based side that is not only public facing, but it's just like such a wide audience, and wayfinding, invitations, marketing. It was a really great experience, and I still miss it. I love that place. And so afterwards, I got to do graphic design at a company called GANS and their Webkins team. And after about a year, they were like, oh, we just need some mock-ups for our websites. We were doing like proposals for Avengers and Popper's Penguins, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this. So it was very much an organic progression to being a user interface, user experience designer. Very much a gradual thing. Thank goodness I was never thrown into the deep end per se, but I got to be mentored and learn from a lot of great user experience designers before I sort of got into the deep end of that side, and got into mobile gaming, briefly into, I shouldn't say briefly, it was a few years. I was a creative director at a mobile app development studio. So that was a little bit more, I should say, it is sometimes dry. You could be one day helping create the Disney XD, video streaming apps. And then the other day you're helping create an app for folks who sell garbage bags, which is a challenge and interesting on its own, quite the gamut. And in that process, you get to know, like, okay, once again, what am I drawn to? And that brought me back again to games, because I love telling stories, and I love the fact that there is emphasis and priority placed on, we want to make sure that they have a great experience, that, you hear the word delight thrown around, but really it's, telling stories, getting people engrossed in it, giving them something to unwind, which over the past year and a half has definitely been a plus. And yeah, so I've been at Zynga for almost 5 years now. I'm due a face cake, I'm told. But, oh, and one thing I forgot to mention earlier, you may catch some references as I chat. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So not in the States, but yeah, that's where I'm based out of.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us from all the way on the other side of the continent, as it were. Kat.
Hey, so yeah, I started, like I said, taking pictures of my friends in my basement with like a sheet and doing like fashion, fun portraits, and just taking a lot of photos. And then I went to school for it. I got my BS in photography. Can you hear me okay? I put my fan on. It's still cool. Okay, good. It's getting warm up here in Vista. So yeah, I went to school. I started out in art school, which I hated because it was so conceptual. There's all this pressure to create something new, and I just felt like this big phony, just copying other people's stuff, and I kind of thought I couldn't do it, So I took a break, and then I went back to a different school. I went to Northern Arizona University, which is more of like a regular four-year college with like a just regular photo department. And I loved it. And then I straight out of college, I worked for the Sedona Red Rock News, which was the community newspaper nearby. And I just got lucky like that. One of my first clients was the Hopi tribe. So that was pretty cool to do like a PR campaign for those guys and take pictures on the res, which is kind of, well, they don't really allow that. So I was kind of like had this cool access. And that's the cool thing about photography is like you get access to situations and events and people that you wouldn't normally get. And I loved that. It's such a rush and such a high. So yeah, then I moved to San Diego in 2004. I had no job, no contacts. I had some family friends in Mira Mesa and that's it. And I just started freelancing for the Union Tribune and the AP like right away, like that first week. And then I've just done a lot of freelance for newspapers in the beginning, and then eventually like corporate and commercial jobs that pay a little bit better than editorial. So that's where I'm at today. Just trying to hustle. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Francisco.
Yes, I started making music or playing music when I was probably 7 years old. So yeah, that was pretty early. I've been making music since then, although I wrote my first composition when I was, I think, 13 years old. And back then, I just wanted to make music and play. I had a band and we were playing. We weren't old enough to go to a bar, but we were playing in bars. So I was playing in parties and bars and until pretty late in the morning. And that was a lot of fun. Later, I started studying music, actually, at the National Music School in Mexico City. But I didn't finish because I got very interested in technology, and I started working with theater companies and dance companies. So I started making music for them. I kind of focused on that and left a little bit the rock music and the playing in bars and stuff. So I started making more, sorry, let me mute this. I started making music and touring with these dance companies and theater companies. And then I was making also a little bit of sound installations and working with sound in a different way other than music. And that's how I started also making connections with museums and connections with other organizations. So it was a pretty gradual transition between making music and making art. Then one day I moved to San Diego, and what the first thing I did here was sharing my portfolio with all kinds of museums and galleries. Back then, I was already showing my work in museums in Mexico City, or sending my work to open calls in other parts of the world. And then here in San Diego, I started showing my work. I had a good connection with San Diego Art Institute, so I had a few exhibitions there. And that's how I pretty much got known as an artist first here in San Diego. And I made those connections with the artistic community. Later, there was an opportunity to, I started collaborating with this organization, with Casa Familiar. I made their website first and took some photographs and started making videos for this organization as volunteering. I did it totally for free. But I liked the way they were working. I saw some exhibitions here at the gallery, and I thought that it was a nice gallery, and it was very interesting that it was so close to the border. Suddenly, the organization changed directions, changed the director. The director of the gallery actually retires. And there was kind of an empty space. So I curated one exhibition about with artists from Oaxaca, Mexico. I brought 40 prints from Oaxaca, Mexico, and we had an exhibition here. And that was my first exhibition I curated here at the front. I curated another exhibition like a year later, just invited some friends, and it was mostly a photography exhibition. I'm very passionate about photography as well. And then the organization asked me if I could help them organize another exhibition, and then another exhibition. And without knowing, I was already doing all the programming here at the gallery, and everybody was contacting me and proposing projects to the gallery. So I became the director here 3 years ago, officially the director. And since then, I've been completely focused on the gallery. And again, it's a lot of fun. It's been a journey, but I still make music. I just released an album 3-4 months ago, and I'm working on different projects. So that's the story.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It sounds like such a story of curation. I remember that from when I've worked in that field before. Okay, I'm going to switch to some specific questions for our artists, or for our panelists, sorry. If any of you would like to jump in and answer any of these questions as well, please do feel free to just, raise your hand and let me know you'd also like to answer this. I'm going to start with one to Francesco. What are some challenges you overcame on your way to becoming a curator? What tips would you give to students interested in curating, and what tips would you give to student artists when it comes to showing or talking to a curator? You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the challenge, I think one of the biggest challenges as a curator is, to have a space to curate something, right? It's like, how can a gallery trust you if you have never curated anything? But the same applies as an artist, as a musician. So I think always the best advice I can give is just do whatever you want to do, even if you want to do it in your friend's garage, in your own house, in your patio. You can curate. If you are interested about curating, well, you can curate an exhibition with your friends at a friend's house, and that's how you get to do things. One of the assistants here at the gallery, Hector Castro, he's a very, very young individual. He's probably 21 years old. He studied with us one program about photography and gallery management when he was like 15 years old. So he was already curating concerts in his parents' house. His dad told me that, he organized a concert and like 200 people showed up at their house, and it was super crazy. And of course, Hector now is working with us, and he's organizing the same concerts for 200 people. So that's just an example of, just do whatever you want to do, even if they're not going to pay you, even if, it's not an official gallery, an official concert, an official exhibition. Just start doing it, and that way you get the experience. The tips that I can give for curating work, I guess I think art for me is a conversation. So as an artist, I think about that when I make a piece. I want to make a piece that just says something to establish a conversation. It may be my own statement. It may be just me throwing ideas so everybody talks about it in their own way. And as a curator, when I'm making exhibitions, that's one of the first things that I think about is like, what is this exhibition going to be about? I don't think about the techniques. I don't think about the kind of the artists, if they're from San Diego, from Tijuana, I just think like, okay, I want to make an exhibition about, in this case, the current exhibition, well, the one that we're going to open in the next week. This is an exhibition about becoming something. And becoming something means, it's a very interesting concept that several philosophers along the history have studied and talked about. Like becoming is the present and the future. And that moment between the present and the future, that's a bit confusing, right? So the becoming also involves the past. So becoming is a flux. It's a river that is constantly passing, moving. And I wanted to make an exhibition about that. And that was kind of the first thing that I do is I write the statement so I get these ideas. And then I start to contact the artist. Sometimes I just go on Instagram because I follow the artists that I like. And I start looking at their photos, and then I see somebody that I remember does something that is related to exhibition. Oh yeah, I forgot about this person. So I'm gonna contact this person. And then I remember one artist that I met in Mexico City. So I go on my contacts and take a look at their website. And, but the first thing is the idea, is the conversation. This conversation could be about anything. I think the narrower, the better. So, I mean, you can talk about love, death, and I don't know, poetry in an exhibition. There's kind of too many things going on for my taste. So I will rather focus on love, that is not, how can I say it? Yeah, love when you are not being loved back. I don't know, just as an example. And tips for artists approaching curators. Well, I had actually a class about this, and I just wanted to think about something. In a gallery like the front, when we make an exhibition, it requires, well, my time, so I work on this exhibition for 3 months, 4 months. The space, we dedicate the space to this exhibition. We usually have a budget. The budget could be anywhere between $500 to $10,000, $20,000, like it depends on the exhibition. So just think about, if you want to show your work in a gallery, think about all these factors, because it is makes you consider, think about your work as something more serious. And this relationship between an artist and a gallery is it's a personal relationship. It's like, if we are going to show your work, we're going to dedicate 5 months of our time, $5,000 to this project. So that is something very serious. So if you want to propose something to an artist, to a curator and a gallery, my first tip is go to the gallery first. Get to know the space. Even you don't propose anything then. Just go to the gallery, take a look at their website, take a look at what they do. Does it fit with your interests? There are some commercial galleries and they want to sell. So do you want to bring your piece to that gallery? Is your work sellable? Do you want to sell your work? Or maybe you want to bring your work to a gallery like the front, that is a community art gallery. We don't, we do sell art, but our main goal is to bring art to the community. Then when you found a gallery, well, now find the person. The gallery is not just a building, it's a person managing the gallery, managing the organization. So who curates in this gallery? Find their name, find the name of this person, and then go and talk to that person. The best idea is to meet that person at the opening, at an event. Just introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Francisco, I'm an artist. I enjoyed the work that you put on this gallery. Nice to meet you. You don't propose anything yet, not quite yet. You're making a connection. You know, if this person, if this gallery one day is going to dedicate $5,000 to your work, you have to, you know, build that relationship. Sometimes I receive emails that are like, hello, my name is Roberto, I'm an artist. I want to have a solo exhibition. Are you available next month? And I'm like, well, wow. Or, you know, they even send me that on Instagram. Hey, I want to have a solo exhibition. What's up? How are you doing? Can we meet tomorrow? And, you know, they don't even introduce themselves. And that's pretty common because social media makes it so accessible that you just see a post and you just respond to the post and think that that's gonna make the connection. So once you made these first connections, points, then you can propose something. But the best way is to go and talk to this person. It could be by email, it could be on the phone. Hey, I would like to propose something. What is the best way to do it? Some people may say, oh yeah, tell me here on Instagram. You know, some others may say, send me an email with a proposal. Some others may say, oh, why don't you come to the gallery and talk about your project? But you know, you have several points before getting to that moment of talking about your project. And finally, write it down. Write your ideas, everything you have in mind, put it in a single page, in a single paragraph, and explain your idea, the concept, the theme, if there's a budget, if there's artists, if there's, you know, if it's your paintings, how many paintings, what is the theme of your paintings? You know, if you want to have a solo exhibition, put it together in your mind, put the theme, the description, the curatorial text, and then you propose that. So I'll be happy to answer questions about this process. And yeah, I'll be happy to welcome you in the gallery whenever you have the chance. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, Glenn, the next question is for you. How has the graphic design field changed? And what do you see for the future of graphic design? And then a follow-up to that would be, what are recommendations for students studying graphic design right now?
It's changed quite a bit since I first started studying. This is really gonna date me, but when I first started doing graphic design, we were doing all the typesetting and lettering by hand. There was no using Photoshop or Illustrator at the time. Adobe just came out with like Adobe 1 and 2 around that time. So it was much more laborious process, doing everything by hand. But it also taught you a lot of things of how to see things differently, not relying on just your tools. It built your skill level so that you didn't need a computer to work out problems and design issues. You could see it yourself and figure it out. Of course, you know, in this day and age, you know, Adobe Creative Suite is the king to help you solve your design issues and create stuff. I use Photoshop and Illustrator daily. I use it to create layouts and designs, and I also illustrate with Photoshop. I paint in Photoshop. It has changed quite a bit, just technology-wise. The aspects of graphic design has not changed. I don't think so. In my personal opinion, everything is still very solid. I think you need a solid foundation of understanding design to be successful, to make all of your everything that you produce to be workable and to be appealing to the consumer. But technology has definitely raised the bar in what you're able to create nowadays. Like I said, I was working with Adobe Photoshop 1 and 2, and look where we are now. It's quite a few years now, and all the leaps and bounds that they've made in those programs to be able to make things easier is astounding. I'm actually still learning new things from a lot of coworkers and friends much younger than I am. who have gone through the program, the graphic design program, and has had access to better technology. So even though I could say I'm an old hand at doing this, I'm still learning. And I think that's one of the best things that you could always say is never stop learning. You can't, if you're ever going to, in any career, I don't think you could ever go into it and then go, I'm good. This is where I'm at and this is where I'm going to stay. You have to keep learning to keep up, because technology keeps changing, techniques keep changing, and even the taste of the consumer keeps changing. So you're always having to learn something new all the time. And that's one of the biggest things I can't stress enough, is not to be complacent, not to just sit there and go, all right, I'm good. I'm good at where I'm at. This is where I want to be. You can be, but I think as I don't think you're doing yourself you are doing yourself a disservice if you just say, I'm going to stay here and not strive to become or learn more than what you're already at. I think that's essential in anybody in the art field to just keep moving forward and keep moving upwards, because there's always something new that you can always learn. And even though it's even though you could say, oh, I'm pretty good at what I'm doing, there's always somebody better. And that will also make it that will also make a big decision whether or not you get picked for a job or not. Always learn, keep learning, don't stop, and don't say, I'm just good here, because that will make a difference once you start putting yourself into considering yourself, this is the career path that I want to be in. Sad to say, sometimes it's ruthless, and you're vying for this job, and then you're applying everywhere, and sometimes this is my dream job. I want to work for Warner Brothers, and I hope I get it. But then the next person who applies has that one next skill level that is just a little bit above yours. It's just going to make more sense for them to say, I need them because they bring more to the table. That's what you have to think about to yourself, is what are you bringing to the table that is going to make, even to employers, to say, I want that person because they bring this, and this, not only just in skill level, but also how you interact with people, how you present yourself, how you literally make yourself sellable to the employer and also to the end consumer. Like, how are you going to put it out there that everyone else is going to like? And you have to keep considering that every time you think about what I want to do, especially in graphic design. It's subjective sometimes. You might think it's very cool design. You might think this is like, oh, I made the best thing since sliced bread. And it's not going to matter if, the people out in the consumer world are looking for products and they look at it and are like, I don't like it. It's not going to sell. So you have to, that comes with learning your audience too. Who are you selling this to? Who are you designing for? You have to rein in a little bit of the artist ego, a little bit. You could still have pride in what you do, but also you have to think, am I making this for me, or am I making this for the person who's going to buy this? Who is my market? And how do I relate to them? I still have to do that quite a bit, especially because of my age. I'm still designing for younger markets, and I don't necessarily relate to them, very well, but I have to learn about them. I have to understand what their buying trends are, what they're into, what the trends in music is, what the trends in the art field are, and keeping that up all the time is something that you always have to consider thinking about at all times. And that basically led into me what the advice is for if you want to get in a graphic design career, is never stop learning. And even if you don't think that it has to do with graphic design, like learning a little bit about people, because it tells you what they might be into, what they're prone to buying, what they're prone to saying, ooh, that looks cool, aside from something else that somebody else designed. Or how can I make it so, design something so it's so appealing that they're gonna wanna come back to go, I can't wait for the next iteration. I can't wait for the next t-shirt. I can't wait for the next toy that they're gonna come out with because this one was so good. You have to understand your audience. You have to understand the consumers quite a bit. And that's not taught. That they don't teach you that. They teach you the skills of how to, how to justify type, or how certain shapes relate to others, and what those shapes and colors mean to certain people. But understanding your audience on a personal level is something that you have to try to learn on your own to be successful. And like I said, I'm constantly doing that all the time. There's so many different things that I'm learning. Just like, I don't TikTok, but I know that that is like a resource of learning of what's trending now, what's everybody looking to and whatnot. And it's just a resource to understand what you're going to be making for the consumer in the next few months. TikTok revolves very quickly of trends and memes and whatnot. So constantly looking at stuff like that, Instagram, following your favorite artists and whatnot, and designers, to understand more than just your style. Because there's a lot of different artists, a lot of different designers that doing really, really cool work, but that's not you. But how do you look at that and say, where can I put myself that other people can look at my stuff the way they're looking at their stuff, and be appealing. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. That was really cool. Jackie, I'm going to pass this next one to you. In the field of interactive and web design, there are new software and technologies being introduced all the time. How do you keep current, and what recommendations might you have for students who might not be able to access the latest and most current technologies as yet?
Cool. Definitely will answer that question. I'm going to counter you with a short question. I see, looks like a classroom under Derek Weiler. I was just curious who those folks are. Hey.
That is, yes, Derek is one of our studio art professors. And Derek, do you want to let folks know what class you're teaching? Because I'm not sure which one that is.
Yeah, sorry not to derail too much, but I'd like to know who.
No, that's okay.
And bless y'all for wearing masks.
Yeah, this is Art 101, Design 1. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Great to hear you.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek.
Right.
Do you want to
So,
say hi to the panelists? Hi.
hey. Awesome. Thank you for indulging me. So to your question, like Glenn was touching on, things are evolving so much. It can be a little bit overwhelming. I'll say that. I admit to leaning on YouTube quite a bit if I need to refresh myself on how to do certain effects in After Effects, or even if I'm just ramping up on something new like Figma. When I was starting out with wireframes and stuff, I was using Illustrator quite a bit, and then Sketch became the new hotness, and I was like, oh no, something new. And thank goodness, though, you can definitely see that a lot of softwares these days, they share a lot of functionality, a lot of shortcuts. They also recognize that they've got a billion different shortcuts. So there are cheat sheets. There's no shame in using cheat sheets for shortcuts. And this is the kind of learner I am. I learn best when I'm doing things alongside the instructor. So it doesn't quite help me too much to read manuals with not being able to immediately apply it. So completely encourage. I'm sure there's a bunch of like package files out there that people have made as free resources, templates that you can tinker around with. And most software do have free trials. 30 days is not enough for a full project, I admit. So I have prepared a list of resources for y'all. Now I want to preface this by I haven't delved into every single one, so I can't answer technical questions on them, but I did source the Zynga XD community and I trust them. So as a Photoshop alternative, and Kat may have more specific like photo editing alternatives for y'all, but for like digital painting or some very simple photo editing, Krita, Krita, is a resource, and Affinity Designer. Now, Affinity Designer it does cost money. It's cheapest if you are going to be using it on an iPad, but otherwise it's a $60 flat rate, I believe, and it's been well reviewed by my digital painting folks. For Illustrator, like vector work, Inkscape, spelled like it sounds. And for Sketch or XD alternatives, like I was mentioning, Figma. Figma offers you up to, what's it call it? I think maybe 3 or so free projects. So you're not going to be able to, create an unlimited number of projects, but you can just keep building out on the same one. That's a little hack. And InVision Studio is also an option with a limited number of projects. So yeah, you're gonna have to probably keep building on or refreshing one. But the great thing is like I was saying, Figma has a lot of shared functionality with Sketch and XD. So you learn that, you're gonna be pretty good if you need to port that over to XD and Sketch. And Sketch has a free trial. It's pretty solid. I personally prefer it over Illustrator, even after my initial griping. And Protopie, Protopie, is something that our teams have started to use for prototyping, as the name suggests. And it's pretty powerful. You can do a lot of animations. It remembers previous pages, so you don't have to do like tedious hooking up. Now, how do I keep on top of all that? It's a lot of, like I was saying, community shared knowledge, and just trying to stay on top of that, and just learning along with friends. And honestly, the biggest thing, and kind of touching on the previous questions, biggest obstacles are fear of failure or fear of not being perfect. I still struggle with that. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to say like, well, I'm gonna just jump right in. And because I'm fortunate enough that it's all digital, I have an undo button. I can save 50 different copies if I need to of the same things to do some exploration and testing it out. I know it's a lot harder if you're doing silk screening because that emulsion, it ain't cheap. And you gotta keep doing the exposure of the silk screens over and over and over. Something like that. I also learned the hard way how to multitask and plan ahead, and it, is a new technology to me then as well. But just trying to be comfortable with making mistakes, low stakes mistakes, hopefully. And I also just kind of like wanted to build on something Glen mentioned, which is like absolutely take opportunities where you can to learn. Don't be afraid to ask folks, hey, can I just like shadow you to see how you get this particular particle effects happening in Unity. And most folks are pretty chill about it. And we have Zoom now with screen sharing. So that's super helpful. I also want to say that things have changed in that it's totally cool to be happy where you are. Don't go for change's sake, but definitely to change your situation if it's not serving you or if the situation is not conducive to your growth.
That is excellent advice in every occasion. I also want to acknowledge that you're wearing orange, and thank you for that. The significance is important. Kat, how has COVID affected your career as a professional photographer? What do you think the future holds for photographers? Along with that, what advice would you give to students?
Okay, hey, thanks. You know, two of my clients asked me that same question this week. And, you know, when COVID hit, all my clients canceled for like the first 2 months of it, because I do a lot of performing arts. So like my big clients were this San Diego Community College District and the opera. So both of those things, I had this big campaign with City College doing all these cool photos for all their different departments, and that just stopped. The opera canceled 2 productions, and it was like, I just baked pies and sold them to my friends and just did that to keep like a sense of purpose, connect with people. I would deliver the pies down to San Diego to people. And I did a little photojournalism on spec, and then I uploaded like a bunch of stuff to a stock agency, which didn't make any money. But, and then in June of 2020, it was like, all of a sudden, like, it was hot. Like, all of a sudden people were calling me, they had marketing budgets. They had all this stimulus money that they needed to spend, PPP loans, and it was like the best a few months of my career. Like, it was so good. I had one client like double my rate because he just like, I have to spend this money or I'm gonna lose it. You know, it was crazy. And then it was just kind of like in waves like that for a while. And yeah, it's been good. Like, COVID's been pretty good for my business. Like right now, like corporate events are back. I just shot a corporate event this week at the Hyatt in Carlsbad, and everybody was so grateful just to be in person. Like, it was so easy to take photos because everyone was just happy to be able to connect. I don't know if you want to pull up my website and you can share it. I did this, I did a lot of drive-in concerts, like right in the heat of it all. Like, that was the only events that were really going on, where I did these drive-in concerts for a company called Mainly Mozart. So it was like, I have goosebumps, like June of 2020. And they, like, in a dirt field at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, they set up a stage and they played Vivaldi and Mozart with the like chamber music, and the parking lot full of cars, and people were crying just to be able to have that like experience, you know. And the musicians were so, just to hear the orchestra tuning, or just like have that sense of purpose, and for me to have a sense of purpose again, like to be there and photograph that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's been surreal. Oh yeah, you can go just to events. Oh, here it is, resilience, the first one. If you go on resilience. So this is, they did a series, I think this was in July, in the middle of the fires. It was so post-apocalyptic. It was like the fires, and then they had these concerts, and people were like tailgating like these guys, and it was such a beautiful thing to have events back, like, and not have everyone all afraid and hiding in their homes, you know. So yeah.
Those are gorgeous. And yeah, that's very true. Do you have advice for our students?
Well, a lot of people already said everything, you know, just like do your thing, have confidence, don't be afraid to fail. Like, I was terrified when I moved to San Diego. I thought for sure I'd be like working at the Red Lobster, and, you know, like my best, like the best guy of my entire class in college, like just got a job at Home Depot and like stopped doing photography because he was just like, you know, he got that 9 to 5 and that steady paycheck, and it's like scary to do something different, to go follow your passion. So yeah, just do it and reach out. I had a lot of support and help, like a lot of support and help through other photographers, and yeah, like still, like if I have a big job, like I'll reach out to my colleagues and be like, hey, can you help me out? Like, Or what would you charge for this big commercial job? I've never done anything like this. You know, what do you think? Yeah, you're not alone. Please reach out to me if anybody wants to chat and get coffee and talk about, you know, life and art, and I'm happy to be there. Someone did that for me, so thank you.
Wow, so much great information, so much great understanding nuggets. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. Kat, Francisco, Glenn, Jackie, Derek, we see you in the class also for being here, and all of our participants for being here today. It is a little over our time. We do want to thank our panelists. We do want to be cognizant of your time too. So if you do have to go, we understand. My name is Victor. I'm from Student Employment Services Department, and we connect students to opportunities to learn such as these, as well as to jobs and internships directly. And we did have some questions, but I understand the panelists may have to go because we have taken up more of your time. So if any of you have to go at this time, we completely understand. But if anybody's willing to stay and answer some of the questions, that would be awesome. So panelists, if you got to go, thank you so much for being here. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. We are recording this again, and we're so grateful for you being here. For the panelists that are able to stay, we do have some questions that are coming in. As you can see, the many thank yous that are coming in to you as well. Just some quick questions that we have. I'm just going to start at the top. For anybody, and we're going to ask just because we're over time and because we do want to be a little more cognizant of your time as well. If everybody can keep their answers to just 1 or 2 minutes, how hard was it to get through the interview process in hiring for many of you? How hard was it to get through the interview process and hiring? And anybody can take it. Everybody doesn't have to answer if you don't want to, but if anybody would like to go ahead, Jackie. Thank you.
I'll rhyme off something real quick. In short, it depends. And that is the most unhelpful and helpful answer that you can get. It depends because if it's an entry-level junior position, interviewers tend to be a little more patient, a little bit more understanding if you don't have a whole lot of experience under your belt. And I'll say that was specifically for graphic design position. And I also want to say specifically what position it was for, because it does matter what kind of requirements you have. Nowadays, user interface, user experience designers, they sometimes get asked to do a test, and that's also asked of concept artists. And I would also just caution you about that, just because some folks want to take advantage of young professionals and get them to do spec work and not let you know about that. So I think it is the hardest part is doing your research about the company that you're applying for, because even though they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them, making sure that they're going to have your best interests in mind, that your growth in mind, and that they're also going to pay you what you are worth, friends. Freelancing is scary, and it's something that I personally, it doesn't vibe well with me, but I'm just going to throw out a quick resource that may be helpful for you if you're going to be going into freelance work. There's a book called the Graphic Artists Guild Handbook, and it talks about the ethics and rates of being a freelance artist. And I highly encourage you to look through it. There's even like sample contracts as well that you could potentially use depending on what the scope of the work is. The interview process, if you're an introvert, it can be a struggle. So I would just say practice, practice, practice whenever you're talking about your favorite pieces, and truly, truly only show your favorite pieces, because if you're not loving something that you're talking about, it's definitely going to come through to your interviewer, and they're also going to kind of lose interest. But if you're like, let me tell you about how this went down, and then it'll be very engaging. That's just a quick slice of that.
Awesome. If there's none others that would like to answer that question, what's the best way to start making connections in the professional world that you found in your fields? What are the best way to start making connections in the professional world? For example, interior design, designer. What are some of your, what would you say is the best way to start making connections in the fields? Go ahead, Glenn, I see you're unmuted.
LinkedIn.
Oh,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Even at my stage in career, I'm still making connections throughout the graphic design and art community through LinkedIn. And even though you might not even really interact with these people, you're showing interest in what they do, and following certain companies that you either want to work for or you admire with the stuff that they do. Following them on LinkedIn, it's a lot different than following somebody on Instagram and Facebook. It's very professional. So use it as a professional resource. Follow these people and just introduce yourselves to them and say, you know, I'm brand new. You know, I'm wanting to get into this field, and you know, you're trying to build up your career. And luckily, some of these people that I made connections with got me jobs, and even when I was freelancing, or even put me in connection with other people and other companies that they are saying, hey, I saw your stuff. I think you'd be a good fit for this company. You should, or they're hiring, you should go talk to them, or send your resume to these people. LinkedIn is strictly a networking resource above all others to get a career or further your career, especially when you're starting out or changing careers. The amount of connections that you can make in there that will help you out is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I second that. I even have students from York University or Sheridan, which is where I attended, and they're saying, hey, I know you went through my program. Can I just like jump on a call for 15, 20 minutes, get your insights or experiences afterwards? I'm totally comfortable with it. Just brace yourselves if you get ghosted or no one responds. But I think LinkedIn is a great resource. It puts yourself out there without having to go to a networking event. And personally, those aren't my cup of tea. But I think LinkedIn, it's great because you know your purpose is clear.
Yes, and for those of you who maybe you haven't, you don't know too much about LinkedIn, or you need some help with networking and resourcing, and building resources on LinkedIn, we just dropped a video in the chat on our SES, our Student Employment Services YouTube. We do a workshop on best practices with LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is so key, I call it so clutch in connecting with employers, and especially with professionals as well. I'm so glad that you both mentioned that. Thank you. And also, and one of the last questions that we had was, do you have any tips on portfolio building, especially for illustration? But any tips on portfolio building? Go ahead.
I actually cannot speak to that because luckily my first job I got because I didn't have a portfolio. I was still going to school. So I landed my first job before finishing school. And they just said, what do you have? And I said, I don't even have a portfolio. They took my sketchbooks and went through my sketchbooks. And I had no control over that. I said, well, I'm not going to pull pages out. They just took everything. And that's just luck. That's not like I'm telling you, this is what you should do. I think if you're going to build your portfolio for illustration, put the pieces that you feel the proudest of, the ones that you put the time and effort into that showcase your best work. And just like how Jackie was saying, put the stuff that you feel the best about, which leads into something I forgot to tell you all. If you're going to go into a career like this, I was speaking before the meeting was even started. If you're going to go into a career in any of these fields, do it with passion. Don't do it just because, oh, I heard it's a lucrative career. Don't do it because, oh, I'm going to pay bills with this. If you're going to go something, especially in the art field, do it with full force and full passion, because if you're doing a job that you're happy at, your work is going to show. Your work will really reflect how passionate you are about your artwork and the stuff that you do. Don't do it for a paycheck. Don't do it for that. I mean, that's a great bonus if it ends up being lucrative, but always show up with a passion for what you want to do. And if this is something you're going to question yourself about, do I really want to do this? Then look at your other options of what makes you the most happy. And I can't stress that enough, because it'll make your work shine. When you put passion into it, your work will completely shine, and you will keep moving forward. You will keep going further and further. Yeah, passion.
I concur with that. I have had to refresh my portfolio a few times over the last 14 years. Not only just in my professional career, but also for the universities I applied to or the colleges I applied to, I had to put together a portfolio. So a few key things, high level. Quality over quantity. Don't feel like you have to have a 50-page portfolio of the same life drawing session in order for it to be a solid portfolio. If you have a range of media that you like to use, that's valuable to see, I think, for any concept artist position. To see if you can do digital painting, to see if you can do, even just rough graphite sketches is great. If you work with lithography, if you work with oil paints, all that stuff is amazing to see. Like Glen was saying earlier, range is really key. There are still roles out there. I do want to, clarify, there are roles that are pretty specialized. So there ain't no shame in that. If there's something that you are really passionate about and you intend to stick with that medium, indefinitely, that's totally fine too. If you do, for example, stick with oil paints, that's great. Show some plein d'air painting, show some landscapes, show some still life, or even abstracts. It's cool too, because what's great about portfolios, it is representing you. It's representing your ability to take on new styles, to take on different briefs. If you have someone who wants to commission a portrait from you, they would like to be able to see that you can do portrait work. So that's also, great to showcase photography, because that speaks to how you frame a scene, how you light a scene. All these things speak to a variety of your skill sets. I will also say there's one thing that's often overlooked in terms of the portfolio package, and that is your resume. It is the first thing that a lot of hiring managers will see. Now, I'm not saying you got to go full tilt and paint that stuff. No, my friends, you still type it up, because it's got to go through a bunch of keyword searches and everything. But it is also the first thing that represents you. Business cards are kind of on their way out. Digital resumes are definitely the thing that gets circulated most often. Just put a little bit of time in it. Don't rely too much on a Word, Microsoft Word template. Do a little bit of reading up on typography, see how columns will help you. Everyone is reading stuff on their phones these days, and there's a reason for that being easier to read. It's because shorter line lengths are less fatiguing on eyes. So try columns, keep things brief. You don't necessarily have to create a logo for yourself, but make sure that you're intentional about the font you choose. I'm not on the hate train for Comic Sans, but I will say that it conveys a different language about you. It could say that you're a little bit more juvenile. If that's the gig that you're applying for, great. But just put a little bit of time on that, because that is part of your portfolio. As artists, we are expressing ourselves visually. I love having stuff on my iPad to show, especially as an interactive designer. But there's also still value in having a printed portfolio, having something tactile that folks can flip through and experience themselves when in person things can be a thing again. And I can recommend Squarespace as a good resource for building a website, mostly because it's responsive, so folks can read it on their phones or tablets. And I think Wix is free and they also have responsive templates. Yeah, and I'm happy to clarify or expand on any of that if need be.
Thank you. Oh, everyone's just dropping. Oh man, this is some great information. So for our last question, someone asked, what about showcasing work you did for your current position? Could you run into copyright infringement or something of that sort regarding portfolios?
Yes, 100%. And I'm sure Glen's, like, you've got all these great IPs to work with. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you can't even talk about. I'm the same way. It's very important to get explicit permission to share that. Unfortunately, the nature of the interactive digital video gaming world is that there can be turnover, you know, if a project goes well or doesn't. But you should get explicit approval to share something, especially if it's not been publicly released. If something has been publicly released, you shouldn't worry about that. You may run into things if there's like footage or music involved. You might have to have disclaimers on your work, or only showcase that in person so that the interviewer does not have a copy of that intellectual property. Glen, any thoughts? Oh, still
Glen,
muted.
you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's exactly what she was saying. At Warner Brothers, all designers and artists are specifically asked not to showcase any of the work we produce for them unless it's already out in the public field. Because the stuff that we work on is 2 years ahead. So like currently right now, I'm working on stuff for House of the Dragons and Aquaman 2 currently right now, and that stuff is not out yet. I can't, even though I'm finishing the projects right now, I can't show it until those movies and TV shows are released. And even then, what they're asking us to do is, like, even if it's on our portfolio, it would have to be password protected. So if someone wanted to see it, it could only be seen with a password that you give to them. And then after their viewing, you would change it. Unfortunately, I've had colleagues who got let go because they put stuff out on their portfolio, which was amazing work, but the companies they worked for specifically said that's a no-no, and they let them go. So be careful what you put in your portfolio. You, like Jackie said, get explicit permission for whatever you create for the company you're working for, if you can share that on your personal portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is really good information to know. Really good information. Thank you so much to our panelists for taking the time out to share this important information, sharing tips and information that you do not learn just regularly in the books, is in person, and your experiences, your invaluable experiences. We are so grateful that you're sharing those, and we are so very thankful as well. I'm just going to close. Can everybody see my screen real quick?
Yeah, you're on.
Excellent. So we are so grateful to our panelists for being here, to Professor Joanna as well for leading and facilitating the panel, this visual arts career panel. Thank you to the panelists. This is one, but I guarantee this will not be the last time that this will happen. Thank you again. And I just want to quickly just speak to the Student Employment Services Department. If you are looking for work, if you will need essential help with resumes or connecting with LinkedIn, as our panelists talked about, if you need assistance with interview techniques, internships, maybe you're looking for an internship, on and off campus employment, cooperative work experience education, job fairs and events, here at the Student Employment Services Department, we are here to help. And you can even find jobs on Handshake, which is already available to you, which is if you go to your MySWC, if you go to MySWC account and you click Campus Apps, you can click Handshake, which is there. Resources are there as well as this event. And events like these are available to our students. If you need any assistance, feel free to contact me, contact Genesis, who is here as well, at Student Employment SES at swccd.edu. We are here to help connect you to those who can give you the information, give you assistance. We're here to help you further your career as well. So thank you so much for joining us. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, to our amazing panelists. Thank you, Jackie, for staying. Thank you, Glenn, for staying. Joanne, Professor Joanne, you are amazing. We are so grateful that you decided to join us today at the Visual Arts Career Panel. We look forward to seeing everyone again. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Joanne.